This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with audiences, and sell anything from products to content to time. All in one place, all on your terms. I literally sneezed multiple times before I started making this video, and I think it's because I'm allergic to the topic. Hey Spuds, it's Jamie. Welcome back to another video if you're on the channel. I don't know, but welcome either way. I am allergic to transphobia. That is it. I sneeze at the bullshit. Today we're going to have a look at what I like to call bad trans anatomy. Some of it is literally about trans people's anatomy and trans people's bodies, and then some of it is just really dumb stuff that transphobes say. I mean, the majority of things that transphobes say is dumb, and everything they say relating to trans people is dumb. So today we're just here to look at some of the creme de la creme of dumb transphobia, basically getting trans people really wrong. Are we ready? I do not know the context of where this comment was left, but there's a comment of, you get a much bigger reaction if that was actually a great white. No idea, but 2.7 thousand people seem to agree with them. They've had a reply. Give them a break. They are liberals. They can identify a puppy as a great white shark if they want to. I made up the fact there was a 2. There is no 2. It's just laughing faces. 265 people seem to agree with that. Yes, absolutely, because liberal people accept trans people, that suddenly means that they would accept that a shark can suddenly be a puppy. Something being a different species is very different to being transgender, which is very much rooted in science, whereas a great white shark being a puppy, less so. Although, interestingly, aren't baby sharks called pups? Let me just fact check that. Yes, a baby shark is called a pup. So technically, a great white baby shark could be a pup. Maybe not the best example. So somebody who is so confident in what they're saying that they're hiding their identity, they're holding an American flag, but one I have never seen before that says Doge on it. Is that a thing? Is that a new flag? Is it something to do with Dogecoin? I don't know. I don't know enough about this, and I don't want to know enough about it. But anyway, I'm holding a flag that then a sign in the other hand. Very reminiscent to me of the handwriting I would do when drawing on my school book as a 7-year-old. That says trans women are men. There's just a lot about this that is quite funny. I mean, we all know trans women are not men. That is just factually incorrect. And trans and women are 2 separate words. Why is trans in a different color? Like, it's in a different style of text, so it kind of reads more clearly as like women are men. Well, I don't know. It's just something about the individual person standing on a random pavement with this bizarre flag that I have never seen, covering their identity with a sign that is just hilariously pathetic in every single way, from what it says to the aesthetics. Cool, good for you. Subject is a male human, says the aliens. Oh, of course they're picking on Dylan Mulvaney again. Can we please give Dylan Mulvaney a break? Excuse me, but I identify as a female. Subject is a R word, male human. So they believe in aliens, but not the validity of trans people. I see where we're at. I think it's very interesting because there's a rigidity in the thinking of people who have this kind of worldview. Aside, no, they're obviously open-minded to extraterrestrial beings, but not open-minded to being accepting of other human beings. It's this complete, like, blinkered view on sex and gender and biology. So define a male human. You'll find that any definition either excludes some people that you want to includes some people that these transphobes would want to exclude, and then if you try and define sex specifically within that, you can't rely on chromosomes because we can't see them. Very few people actually know what they are, and they're not always what you expect them to be. And I think being intersex is as common as being ginger, so it's not exactly something that never happens. And then through surgeries and hormones, pretty much everything to do with sex, primary and secondary characteristics, can be altered or removed, changed in some way other than chromosomes, which would lead people to having to rely on chromosomes to determine sex and define sex. But again, we found the problem with doing that. Sex is not binary. It's been accepted, and there are medical advancements that mean the many features that constitute sex and would fall under the bracket of a sex characteristic are not fixed. So it gets very complicated. But yes, of course they've used a slur in here as well. The transphobia and a slur. Lovely. I have a feeling that if there were extraterrestrial beings with a level of intelligence, they would not be saying that sentence. They wouldn't agree with the transphobes. I'm a firm believer that aliens would not be transphobic. The LGB part doesn't really matter, you know? This is Anne. She is a left-wing lesbian who has been involved in left-wing politics for her entire adult life. This is Tom, a 50-year-old taxi driver who has decided to blow up his marriage and family in order to live his fetish. He claims to be a naughty little girl and a hot. Anne does not agree that Tom is a woman. No. Anne is now far right and a Nazi. She also gets death and threats from men who support Tom. They always like to depict trans people, particularly trans women, as caricatures that they've built in their own head. So this is the view that these transphobes have of what a trans woman is, and it's very skewed. So as soon as you try to make a comic up about a fictional scenario where you are inserting details about a group of people and a concept and something that you don't understand, and so you make it up on the spot with your own biased blinkered lens, it automatically isn't a thought process that has any basis in factual reality. I can sit here and describe exactly what's wrong with this, but because to them, they've not even tried to give an accurate portrayal of a trans woman, they're using a stereotypically masculine name, they're using he, him pronouns, they've mentioned a fetish, so they're describing somebody that could, for all intents and purposes, not even be a trans woman. If that person is a trans woman, then yes, you are wrong, and you are on the side of politics that is more in line with people who are on the right than you are with people who are on the left, although it's getting a little bit muddy nowadays. So let's pretend that there's an accurate portrayal of a trans woman. It's not saying that Anne herself is far right and a Nazi for having those beliefs only. It's a bigoted viewpoint. It's transphobic because you're not viewing trans people as their gender, and you are seeing trans people as not being valid and their identities as not being valid. If you are somebody who is left-wing and has been involved in left-wing politics all your life, maybe there's a reason why the one thing that you agree with the far right about, being trans issues, that requires a little bit of questioning of like, why? I don't understand at all why any LGBT plus cis person would be transphobic, because transphobia, the transphobia we are seeing right now, is a recycled homophobia from several decades ago. So like, why are you letting history repeat itself when it's literally part of your history, part of the history of your community, and you are now inflicting it on trans people who, whilst there was this massive wave of homophobia, were just completely forgotten, nobody spoke about, and now that there's some representation being gained, we're seeing this huge rise in like horrible transphobia. There was transphobia back then as well, but right now there's a direct targeted attack on the trans community. Punch down and you will become the target one day from the people telling you to do the punching, because they don't accept you either, Anne. No. 2 transgender players compete in women's pool final. A professional women's pool tournament has been hit by protests after the final was contested by 2 transgender players. Who the hell is protesting this? If the argument is supposed to be it's because trans women are going to be physically stronger and therefore dominate sports that are more physical and require strength, then where does that fall into this? These are 2 women who are playing in a women's tournament of pool, something that does not require strength as part of its skill set. And these women, who happen to be trans, will face the same inequalities in society as cis women, but they will also face inequalities as being trans people. I can't get my head around, like, what advantage are they supposed to have over cis women? Trans people are disadvantaged in society. One of the biggest things that contributes towards inequality within sports is access to resources and training and facilities. And do you really think that trans people are getting that when they're literally in a pool tournament, when the main and only argument that is ever used by bigots to exclude trans women from women's sports literally has no standing with this? It's like the whole chess shit all over again. It's not anything to do with physicality. It's not anything to do with any kind of argument, which, by the way, there are studies that have found that trans women do not have an advantage over cis women, those who have medically transitioned. And besides, in elite sports, everybody competing has to pass certain tests in order to be able to compete. But forgetting that for 1 second, what the hell is transphobes' arguments over trans women other than,
oh, we don't like that they're trans, we don't want trans people competing?
It's just transphobia. Stop trying to hide behind some pseudo-science or made-up thing. You are just transphobic. And it's not okay, but you could at least admit it. I think it's time to take a little break from the bad trans anatomy we've been talking about. And do you know what is also bad? The news I have about my very real and not at all made up Pride Pasta restaurant. You may remember that earlier this month, I announced my very pride-filled new pasta restaurant with trans tortellini, lesbian linguine, pansexual penne, and more. Well, Squarespace allowed for the creation of the most pastorific, I think that worked, website that my restaurant was booked back to back until we ran out of pasta. I have depleted the world's supply of pasta. I'm so sorry. So despite this unfusilevably disappointing news, if you've ever thought of starting up your own website, and whatever that might be that you want to offer, from services to events, experiences, consultations, products, a blog, anything, have you thought about showing them off with Squarespace? Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring today's video. Their magnificent website templates make it so easy to design professional looking websites that fit into any category and work on every device. You can customize them and add features to fit your unique needs. And once you've decided on your website idea and overall theme, Squarespace's pre-built layouts let you organize all your different elements how you want them, making it totally simple to design a professional looking website that fits your needs. You can then customize your pages all with a simple drag and drop. Then once you're up and running, keep a track of what's happening on your website using Squarespace's handy analytics tools. You can check on things like top traffic sources, the geography of site visitors, and you can get insights on sale metrics and understand how your reach is growing, with Squarespace giving you all the data you need to scale your business. Who said analytics have to be boring? Sharp and I's actual Squarespace website was super easy and fun to make and not going anywhere. Squarespace gives us the freedom to get creative, link our social media platforms, and show off our podcast 1-800-DRAMA. To get started yourself, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your absolutely knockout website, yay, go to squarespace.com/Jammidodger for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The link is in the description box. Thank you so much for listening. Now let's get back to that bad trans anatomy. It's almost as if gay men want men, not women pretending to be men. Weird, isn't it? Are they referring to trans men as women pretending to be men? Okay. Transgenderism. You know when people say transgenderism, nothing else they say is going to be good or right. Transgenderism goes against everything LGB stood for. Oh, I'm sorry. I really can't stand these like pick-me, transphobic, LGB cis people who are like,
T was never part of it in the first place.
Just completely rewriting history and rewriting the history of the Stonewall riots and rewriting the fundamental part that the trans community have always had to play within LGBT plus spaces and rights and community. Come on, particularly trans women of color. Honestly, LGBT cis people who are transphobic and have these kind of opinions, to just get in the bin. Right in the bin, because the people who are transphobic will come for you next. Just saying. If you can't accept that gay men aren't interested in women, you were never an ally. I'm done with this nonsense. Do you know, that's how I feel about this post. Sincerely, an ex-bisexual. Well, I think that's very telling. Everybody's different, right? I'm an individual. What I can say is that trans people are their genders. So trans men are men. I am a man. Hello. And personally, from the experience of a man who happens to be transgender, I have had many gay men, bisexual men, and many not straight cis men hit on me. Not to sound big-headed, I very rarely notice it, but I do not get hit on by lesbians. Funnily enough, gay and bisexual cis men are interested in trans men. Not every gay and bisexual cis man, but very many, but no lesbians. It's almost as if I'm a man that lesbians would not be attracted to. Okay, but that men attracted to other men might be. What a bizarre post. It infuriates me beyond belief. The whole attitude from some of these transphobic LGBT cis people who think they're better than because they're not trans, and they purposefully want to distance themselves from the trans community and completely disregard the history of the trans community and the history of the trans community within the wider LGBT plus community. It's very rude and it's very wrong. NHS to test all trans children for autism. Oh, every child referred to a gender clinic will be screened under new guidance following CAS review. Oh, what? The review that has been dismantled. I really want to make a video about it, but whenever I hear people be like, the CAS review, no, stop it. We will talk about it in more depth in another video, but if you're interested, this gives quite a comprehensive summary and breakdown of everything wrong with the CAS review. This just feels very problematic. There is a slight correlation between being trans and autism. There tends to be a higher prevalence of autism among trans people, but it is a correlation, it's not causational. And later on it says every child referred to a gender clinic will be screened for neurodevelopmental conditions such as autism and ADHD under new guidance to be introduced in the wake of the CAS review. I fear what that opens up is any child who is trans and has autism or ADHD or both will find their journey to be made difficult and not be believed in their identity. And I think it's both wrong from a trans standpoint to say that, because there is no indication that having autism and or ADHD impacts whether trans people are correct in their trans identities. But it's also rude to people with autism and ADHD, implying that, oh, you don't know yourself very well. I don't know anything more than I've read. I don't know their reasonings behind it. If it was then used in any way to impact the trans-related healthcare provided to that child who also has autism, that's a problem. If it's to also then provide support for them with their autism and being trans as separate things, because they've just realized there's an increased prevalence, so maybe it's a good way to then offer support to people early who are diagnosed with autism, and they're kept very separate, okay. But if they are linked and one impacts the treatment they get in terms of the other in a negative way, it's a correlation, so we don't know exactly. But there is some suggestions that the overlap between autism and being trans could potentially be due to factors such as reduced social expectations, heightened awareness of gender, and a focus on individual experience. So it's not about autism making people trans. I just find this very problematic and worrying, and I'm not sure what that angle is here. It's a house of cards. Okay, so we've got like a Jenga balloon. Always thinking about trans things. The entire trans movement is this big Jenga balloon shape, and it's balancing on one little block that is asking, what is a woman? Like, transphobes are just so boring. As well as being frustrating, they are boring. Because define a woman then. Every definition I've heard, if it doesn't include trans women, it excludes a bunch of cis women. I saw this hilarious tweet, I will put it here, but paraphrasing, it was something like, the one and only answer to the question of what is a woman should be if Shania Twain's Let's Go Girls plays, if you go, girl. Something like that. And I was like, brilliant. That's nice and simple. This could equally be the entire transphobic population asking what is a woman. Sometimes there are things in life that cannot fit into nice little neat boxes, and we should not be reducing anybody down to their body parts, and we should be recognizing that sex and gender are separate things. Sex is not binary, gender is not binary. Stop being so rigid in your worldview. If you're transphobic and you're like,
no, because sex is male, female, sex is the same as gender, gender is male, female, a woman is somebody with a vagina and a man is someone with a penis.
If you see the world like that, that is like primary school level of knowledge, and it is not actually the facts of how we are living and our understanding of human beings. We are a lot more complex than that, and that's okay. We are not neat, tidy little things that can be put in these little boxes and then put away. We are messy, and identity can be messy, and definitions are messy and not black and white, and that's okay. You don't need to understand everything. It just baffles me. The entire trans movement does not fall down on asking what a woman is. Transphobes just show themselves up with that question. A woman is somebody whose gender is that other binary identifier that isn't man. Me, bathrooms are designed for specific genders. Transgender, you show me where that is written. Me, on the dang bang door, and then a crying person in a trans flag. That looks AI, I'm sorry if it's not. I've never heard a trans person say, show me where they're designed for specific genders. There's a difference between putting a gender marker on a door and like it being designed for specific genders. One is designed for people to sit in individual stalls for people who generally sit to pee, and one is designed for people where a majority have the ability to stand to pee. So it's a bit annoying, the lack of stalls in the men's, I'm not gonna lie. And I feel like it would be annoying even for a lot of cis guys, because if there is one other dude pooping whilst you've got to go to the toilet, and if you've got to poop or you're pee shy or you don't stand to pee, you're waiting for a while. More stalls in the men's, please. But I've never heard a trans person say this. They've literally made up a scenario in their own head to be like,
ha, look at how easily I owned the trans person. The transgenders haven't got anything on my logic.
Yes, we have gendered bathrooms. There are also gender neutral bathrooms that are very easily usable for all genders, indicating that we do not need to have bathrooms designed for specific genders. If you have urinals, cool. People who can stand to pee can do that. Hello, I was wondering if you have any trans developers in your studio. I like to know which games I should support. Yes, we have several. Thank you. Remove from your wish list.
I'm not buying this game because there's trans people involved. Ah.
I mean, if you were going to boycott everything that a trans person could possibly be involved in, or every company that would support trans people in any way, I feel like the list is going to be quite long, even in today's day and age. Sure, go like find your Barclays Bank and shit like that. That's, you know, good for you. But this just shows like a real level of pettiness.
How dare you be inclusive? How dare you hire people that are not just cis, white, straight men?
Ew. I've spoken about this so much. If you're not sure what's been happening in the UK recently with trans rights and trans people, I'll leave a link to a summary video that I've made down below, because I don't want to get into it too much here because it's just long. But short story, it's led to this guidance that is saying trans people should be banned from toilets of gender they identify with, and that's been said by a UK minister and also the Equalities and Human Rights Commission in the UK. And it's just, firstly, like, imagine trans men in the women's, but also what do they expect to happen to those poor trans women that are forced into the men's? Talk about putting people at an increased risk. What the And in terms of the women's, now being safe from all those trans women, what a win. By pushing trans men in there, it actually makes it easier for cis men to gain access, because they can just say they're a trans man, which they don't need to do anything. People think I'm a cis man if I don't say I'm trans. So like, if I walked into a woman's bathroom, I would have to very clearly explain that I'm a trans man, but a cis man could just do that. But aside from that, these are some signs that I saw when I went to the bathroom in a UK shopping centre, and this was on the men's and the women's, and it says these facilities may be attended by team members of any gender. So it's all bullshit anyway, because cis men have always been able to access women's bathrooms by just saying they're a staff member. But do you know what? Not saying anything. If they want to go in, they just walk in. Trans people are not the problem here. It's predatory cis men. And doing this to trans people is incredibly shitty. And scapegoating trans people in this way is incredibly shitty. And it makes no sense. It makes no sense, because the guidance then took it one step further to be like, in certain circumstances, trans people will also be banned from the toilets relating to their assigned birth sex. So as in, like, trans men would not be able to use the men's or the women's. Not that I would use the women's, but what options does that leave trans people? There's actually rarely gender neutral options. The amount of places I go and there is not a gender neutral option is ridiculous. Like the photos I just showed you, I don't know of gender neutral options in this place. If they exist, they're very far away from the gendered toilet, and the disabled toilet requires a radar key and should be for the people who need a disabled toilet. I don't know where trans people would be expected to go to the toilet legally. I mean, in all reality, trans people are just going to continue using the toilets of their gender, because what else do you expect them to do? It is an absolutely ridiculous, unenforceable thing. I cannot get my head around how people think that they know enough to make policies like this about the trans community, whilst very clearly knowing nothing about the trans trans community and clearly not having consulted any trans person or even a trans ally. So I got this comment on a video, and I believe it was a video, either a short or a long form, that is related to what I was just talking about with the UK. And somebody said, I know a lot of you upset and I'm sorry, with a crying face. The truth of it is that it is not transphobia at all. Not allowing biological women safe spaces is in fact misogynistic and dangerous. Trans women are women, and trans women are not the people that cis women or other trans women need protecting from. You don't need a safe space from trans women. And there's literally evidence showing that that is the case. The trans women are not a threat to cis women in women's public spaces. Please stop labeling everything you don't agree with transphobia, because you take away the impact and meaning of the word. Excluding trans people from spaces that are correct for their gender, and therefore stating that trans people are not their gender, is transphobic. Saying trans women are men and trans men are women is the most basic form of transphobia. It is invalidating our identities, invalidating our lived experiences, and just factually incorrect. I love trans folks. Honestly, no you don't. You think you do, but if this is your opinion, you do not. I love trans folks. I don't like the ideology behind it. Not accepting others' opinions isn't loving or supporting for anyone. All it does is divide us. Women and girls deserve safe spaces, and so do trans folks, but it is not in women's spaces. So you agree with segregation. You put that on anything else, like talk about gay people, talk about people of color, because this is exactly what was said in like the 50s and 60s of like white women just deserve safe spaces to keep them separate. That's segregation. That is not okay. And then after we moved on from that form of segregation in society, despite there still being a horrific amount of racism in society, there was a call to ban lesbians from women's spaces because they were seen as a threat to straight women. And now this whole bigotry that requests segregation of different groups of women from other groups of women is happening again to trans women. They're saying trans women are a threat to cis women. No, they are not. Trans women are just as deserving of access to women's spaces as cis women are. They are not a threat. Predatory cis men are a threat, and predatory cis men are not trans women. This person makes me so frustrated, because just accept that your little sentences of like, I know you're upset and I'm sorry, trans people deserve safe spaces, I love trans folks. This is exactly how J.K. Rowling was writing 4 or 5 years ago. It was all this like little nuggets put in to be like, oh, don't be mad at me, don't hate me, look at me, like I still love you, like I've just said all this horrific stuff about you, but I still love you. That is not okay behavior. We don't do that. So own it. You are transphobic if you think that trans people should be segregated, because you are basically saying trans women are not women and don't deserve to be in the same spaces as cis women because trans women are a danger to those cis women. That is what you are saying. And by saying this, what is completely lost is that if we are then segregating like biological woman, if transphobes got their way and their definition of biological woman was taken, then trans men would be pushed into these women's spaces. Actual men. Bad trans anatomy. Under Trump's executive order, every single person in America is now legally classified as female. The women's bathrooms for all, apparently. All embryos begin by developing female sex organs, with male sex organs only replacing them at around 6 weeks of gestation. Female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell, and male means a person belonging at conception. Yeah, at conception, every little embryo and fetus and everything, it starts off female, like biologically. So yes, well done. Everybody's female. Let's stop arguing about bathrooms. Everyone can use all the toilets. Trump executive order declaring only 2 sexes gets the biology wrong, scientists say. Order describes sex as immutable, biological classification as either male or female. Our knowledge has moved beyond this, and I don't know how so many people have missed that, including the president. And in response to the announcement, somebody said, male and female sexes, not genders. Genetically, there are also over 30 recognized intersexes that include XXY, XYY, 47, XXY, 46XY, etc. It is a spectrum. Everything is a spectrum. As this lovely little image shows, sex, spectrum, gender identity, spectrum, gender expression, spectrum, sexual orientation, spectrum. We've accepted that gender expression can be very rigidly masculine or very rigidly feminine or somewhere in between. We've also accepted that sexual orientation can be strictly attracted to women or strictly attracted to men or somewhere in between and around this. We know the same is true for gender identity and sex. Gender can be strictly man or strictly woman or somewhere in between or around this. Sex can be strictly male or strictly female or somewhere in between this. A majority of society have accepted half of what's on a spectrum. We just need people to catch up with the other half of things about human beings that are on a spectrum. Like, again, I go back to like the we are not little packages to fit neatly in tiny little boxes. We don't work like that. We are far more complex. Our biology is far more complex. Our brains are far more complex. Our identities are far more complex than transphobes want to believe. And by forcing definitions into not being the complex things that they are, you sound dumb. Like basically saying that everybody is female. It's a jungle out there. Lesbian dating apps. Trans women. Again, the depiction of trans women as being the villain. Like, this is The Shining and he is trying to murder his wife. He's hacking the door down with a cleaver, I think. Or an axe. It was an axe. It was an axe. Oh. I feel like some people say, oh, don't read too deeply into the choice of meat. Like, yeah, it's transphobic, but like, don't read. It does have a depth to it. It is either a malicious conscious choice or it is a subconscious choice of framing trans women as being violent. It's just like choosing to use a villain who is a man to then represent the trans woman is saying trans women are just violent men, and it is feeding into that narrative, and people who see this meme who maybe didn't fully have their own opinion might be like,
ah, yeah, that is all trans women are, violent men.
Even if they don't realize that's why they've taken that message from this meme. It is the message it gives across. Trans women are women. It's so exhausting because it's all going to be the same argument because it's the same shit that keeps being said. I bet you this was not made by a cis lesbian, because cis lesbians are actually one of the most, if not the most accepting group within society of the trans community. Very, 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 very few, such a tiny, tiny minority of cis lesbians are transphobic and do not accept trans people. Let me see if I can find that figure. Lesbians are the most supportive of trans people of all LGBT plus identities other than trans and non-binary people themselves. Lesbian young adults were most likely to say they know a trans person, 92%, and most likely to say they are supportive or very supportive of trans people, 96%. In comparison, 89% of LGBT plus people overall said they were supportive or very supportive of trans people, and just 69%, although I still think that is much higher than some people in society would have you believe. It's much higher than the transphobes would have you believe, but 69% of non-LGBT plus people said they were supportive or very supportive of trans people. Like, the way that some people speak about it, the way that people like J.K. Rowling go on about it, and they have these little groups and shit, you would think that it was like 10% of people accepted the trans community. It's over 2/3. If that gives you any kind of comfort, it gives me comfort. But yes, very silly to make a meme like this specifically about lesbians not being accepting when literally 96% of lesbians accept trans people. I do also think it's very interesting. Another big difference in the statistics is also between people who know a trans person and people who don't know a trans person. So of those who do not know any transgender people, just 33% describe themselves as very supportive of trans people. However, this is compared to 64% of people who do know a trans person, whether they are close to them or not. Nearly double. The very supportive rating doubles between people who don't know a trans person and people who know a trans person. If you're transphobic, just get to know a trans person. You'll double your chances of being a nice human being. And just 3% of people who know a trans person said they are not supportive, compared to 18% of those who do not have a trans person in their lives. So if that's not a bit of evidence to show to you that transphobia mostly comes from a place of ignorance, fear of the unknown, and just having a whole community of people dehumanized and not having an opportunity for them to be humanized to you as an individual because you don't know a trans person. I would ask anybody who is not sure of their opinion, just speak to a trans person if they're comfortable with that. Like, just don't be afraid to get to know a trans person. Humanizing really, really helps. It is so telling that the people who have a trans person in their lives are significantly more likely to be supportive of the trans community. Surely if trans people were this big, bad, horrible group of people that were just wrong and shouldn't exist, exist, it would be the other way around, where when you get to know trans people, you're like, oh no, nah, I can't be on board with this. It's the complete opposite. So do with that what you will, but I think it says a lot. I believe there are two sexes, male and female, boy and girl, man and woman. Those are just all kinds of different terms, and boy and girl and man and woman are for gender. Call it what you want. You clearly have. Others can believe whatever they want. One can believe they are the opposite sex, a dog, a cat, a dragon, I don't care, go for it. However, just I am okay with you believing whatever you want. You must be okay with me believing you have a mental disorder. DEI goes both ways, baby. Trans women and men. There's a difference though between having an opinion and swinging it about in people's faces and being a dick. This is the latter. You have an opinion where you don't think trans people are valid. Like you said, others can believe whatever they want. You can believe that. You can live in your fantasy world where trans people are not valid. Reality is trans people are, and there's scientific, medical, factual, logical, moral basis for accepting trans people. But if you choose to ignore that, that is entirely your choice. What is not okay, making a joke about DEI, because that's very important and not for transphobes, but also this type of statement, like sharing this transphobia. You don't need to share it. Like, you don't need to post about it. You don't need to deliberately go out of your way to make a trans person's day worse. You can just hold that opinion for yourself. I really don't care. I do care when transphobes then try and impede on trans people just trying to live our lives. Remember when you had to create an account? It had two options, male and female. That stuff was nostalgic. They're just like transphobes when they're old people, or if they're already old. They're those ones that like sit all hunched over in their chair, like all shriveled from their own bitterness and hatred, and they're like,
back in the good old days.
And they just can't get over it. They're like,
bread was 2 shillings and a sixpence.
I've got no idea what old money means. Let's just run with that. And they're like, because bread was 2 shillings when I was 7, it should still be 2 shillings now that I'm 87. No, Roger, the world doesn't work like that. Times move. Our knowledge of things evolves. Like, people used to think the earth was flat. People used to think that medicine was all about the humours of the body and like getting rid of bile. They used to get rid of headaches by drilling into the nostril. Lobotomies used to be a thing. They'd amputate people's legs without washing their hands because they didn't know that germs existed.
Oh, remember the times when doctors would just dig around in a man's abdomen wearing no gloves, not having washed their hands after going to the toilet, and with no anaesthetic? Oh, I miss the good old days. Why can't a doctor rummage around in my stomach without painkillers and give me sepsis?
Like, that's what it sounds like. Times move, okay? We learn new things, get over it. Pregnant man. Apple have made a pregnant man. We can't have anything to ourselves, can we? Actually quite degrading to be a female now. Watch Facebook ban me for saying female. Facebook won't ban you for saying female. Pregnant man, masculine appearing pregnant person. It's an emoji. Why are you getting upset over an emoji? The fact of the matter is I'm a man who is trans, who could get pregnant, you know? The new emoji looks a lot more like me than the existing emoji. So what emoji would I use if I got pregnant? Not that I have any plans to, but you know, get over it. And on the note of getting over it, we're done with the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to go give Squarespace a little shout out, and please let me know, what business should I do next now that my Pride Pasta restaurant has not worked out very well? I need suggestions. Please leave me suggestions. If you like the video, think about giving a thumbs up and subscribing, and you can go check out my Patreon as well. You can see the names of some of my Patreons here. So if you want to be part of that or part of my top tier Patreons, a big thank you to Night Soul, Sugar Joe, Jill B, Eldon K, Nesta, The Third Hatman, Jaden Cricket, Max Bates Mods, River Champagne Mon, Ray Loves Rory, Chloe, Io Anna Balash, TNS Mom, and Sally Drew. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting, and you can go click the link in my description box if you want to see what that's all about and support. But again, no pressure. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.